The massive space station hung in orbit above Earth like a steel fortress. Inside its command center, Jake Morrison sat at his desk reviewing reports from the outer colonies. He was a tall man with short dark hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. As commander of the Earth Defense Station, he spent most days dealing with small problems like smugglers and trade disputes. Today was different. The holographic projector in the center of the room flickered to life. An alien appeared before him, but not one of the usual diplomatic envoys. This creature looked like a giant insect, with a hard shell that covered its body and two long antennae on top of its head. The shell, which should have been bright and colorful, looked dull and sick. The alien's name was Velen. He was an ambassador from a race called the Cathari. Jake had met him before at council meetings. The Cathari were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful scientists who spent their time studying stars and planets. They never fought wars. They never even raised their voices in arguments. Now Velen was on his knees, which for his species meant folding his 6 legs beneath his body. His antennae drooped downward in a sign of complete defeat. "Commander Morrison," the translator device turned the alien's clicking sounds into English. "I come to beg for your help. My people are dying." Jake leaned forward. Beside him, Emma Hayes pulled up a chair. She was his second in command, a sharp woman with red hair tied back in a tight bun. She had been with Jake for 7 years and knew how to read situations quickly. "Tell us what happened," Jake said. Velen's antennae trembled. 3 months ago, a species called the Zarok entered our space. We had never seen them before. They travel in huge groups, hundreds of ships moving together like a swarm of insects. But their ships are not made of metal. They are alive." "Living ships?" Emma asked. "Yes. They grow them like we might grow plants. These bioships can heal themselves when damaged. They learn from every battle. They adapt." Velen's voice broke. "We tried to fight them. We used every weapon we have. Energy beams, particle cannons, gravity missiles. Nothing works for long. They adapt to whatever we use, and then our weapons become useless." Jake stood and walked to the large window that looked out at Earth below. The planet turned slowly, blue oceans and white clouds covering most of the surface. It looked peaceful from up here, but Jake knew better. Earth was anything but peaceful. "How many worlds have you lost?" he asked quietly. 12 colonies. Millions of our people are dead or missing. The Zarok consume everything. They take our resources, break apart our stations, and leave nothing behind but empty space. Velen made a sound like wind through broken glass. It was crying. "We begged the Galactic Council for help. Every species on the Council sent messages of sympathy. Some sent medical supplies, but none would send military aid." "Why come to us?" Emma asked. "Humans only joined the galactic community 15 years ago. We are still new to all of this." Velen looked up at them. His large compound eyes reflected the lights of the command center. "Because you come from a death world." The room went quiet. Jake and Emma exchanged glances. They both knew what that term meant. In the galaxy, planets were classified by how dangerous they were. Garden worlds were safe and easy, with gentle weather and few predators. Most alien species came from garden worlds. Then there were medium worlds with some dangers. And finally, there were death worlds. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. It was one of the most dangerous planets in known space. Most species evolved on worlds that were kind to them, Velen continued. The weather was predictable. The animals were peaceful. Food was easy to find. They never had to fight just to survive each day. He paused. But Earth tried to kill you from the moment your species was born. Hurricanes that destroy cities, earthquakes that swallow buildings, volcanoes that cover the sky in ash, animals that hunt in packs. Diseases that spread like fire. Your world taught you to be hard. Jake turned back to face the ambassador. "You think that makes us better fighters?" "I think it makes you different fighters. The other species in the council fight with honor and rules. They use clean weapons and try to minimize damage. They fight like scientists conducting an experiment. Velen stood on his 6 legs. But humans fight like animals trying to survive. You use everything. You hold nothing back. When other species see a predator, they see death. When humans see a predator, they see food. Emma pulled up data on her tablet. Send us everything you have on the Zarok. Ship designs, attack patterns, biological information, anything that might help. We need time to study them. How much time? Velen asked. 24 hours, Jake said. We will review the data and make a decision. If we agree to help, we will do it our way. No interference from the council. No rules of engagement. We handle this like we handle threats on Earth. Velen's antennae rose slightly, a sign of hope. Anything. We agree to anything. Just please help us. After the transmission ended, the hologram faded away. Jake and Emma stood in silence for a moment. Through the window, Earth continued its slow rotation. From space, it looked like a paradise. But both of them had grown up down there. They knew the truth. He has no idea what he just asked for, Emma said softly. Jake nodded. The Council banned biological weapons 3,000 years ago. They have rules about proportional response and acceptable targets. They fight wars like chess games with rules everyone agrees to follow. And we fight wars like survival, Emma finished his thought. Like everything on the planet is trying to kill us, and we need to kill it first. Do you think we should help them? Jake asked. Emma looked at the data streaming onto her tablet from the Cathari systems. Battle reports, casualty numbers, images of destroyed colonies. The Zarok sound like an invasive species. Back on Earth, when an invasive species threatens an ecosystem, we do not negotiate with it. We do not try to coexist with it. We eradicate it completely. That is exactly what I was thinking, Jake said. He pressed a button on his desk. Commander Morrison to all department heads. Emergency meeting in Conference Room 1 in 30 minutes. We have a situation that requires a Deathworlder solution. He looked back at Earth one more time. Somewhere down there, in cities and farms and wild places, 5 billion humans went about their daily lives. Most of them never thought about where they came from or what their planet had made them into. They did not realize that every single one of them was a survivor of the most brutal training program in the galaxy. The conference room filled with people over the next hour. Ryan Cooper entered first, carrying 3 tablets and a data drive. He was the head of intelligence analysis, a thin man with glasses who rarely slept when given a puzzle to solve. Behind him came Kyle Stevens, leading the Marine Assault Division. Kyle was built like a tank, with scars on his hands from a dozen boarding actions. More officers filed in, scientists, weapons specialists, tactical planners. They all knew something big was happening. Word had spread through the station that an alien ambassador had come begging for help. Jake stood at the head of the table. The lights dimmed as he activated the holographic display. Images of the Zarok ships appeared, rotating slowly in the air. They looked organic, like giant insects made of wet flesh and bone. Some had tentacles, others had what looked like mouths full of teeth. "This is the Zarok," Jake began. 3 months ago, they entered Cathari space and started destroying colonies. The Cathari have lost 12 worlds and millions of lives. Their weapons do not work because the Zarok adapt too quickly. Ryan stood and walked into the holographic display. His hand passed through one of the bioships. I have spent the last 18 hours studying everything the Cathari sent us. The Zarok are a hive mind. Think of them like bees or ants on Earth, but much more advanced. They share one collective intelligence spread across millions of individual creatures. How do they adapt so fast? Asked Lieutenant Sarah Chen, the weapons officer. Their cellular structure allows rapid mutation, Ryan explained. When they encounter a threat, their biology changes to counter it, hit them with an energy beam, and their skin develops a layer that absorbs that specific frequency. Use kinetic rounds, and they grow harder shells. It takes them about 6 hours to develop a defense after the first exposure. Kyle leaned forward, studying the images. 6 hours. That is fast, but not instant. What if we hit them with multiple threats at once? Different types of damage happening simultaneously? That is exactly what I was thinking, Ryan said with a slight smile. The Cathari and other council species fight with precision. They pick one weapon system and use it until the battle is over. They never thought to overwhelm the Zarok with variety. Emma activated another screen. I pulled up Earth military history. Do you know what made human armies effective throughout history? We never followed one doctrine. We used swords and arrows and fire and poison all at the same time. We attacked from land and sea and air. We did not fight fair. We fought to win. The door opened, and a woman in civilian clothes entered. Dr. Lisa Grant was Earth's leading expert on alien biology. She looked tired, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "Sorry I am late," Lisa said, moving to stand beside Ryan. "I have been studying the Zarok genetic code. It is fascinating. They share about 40% of their DNA with a fungus we have back on Earth called armillaria. Do you know what that is?" Most people shook their heads. "Armillaria is one of the largest organisms on Earth," Lisa continued. "One specimen in Oregon covers over 2,000 acres underground. It is basically one massive fungus that grows and spreads and consumes everything in its path. The difference is that armillaria just sits there. It does not think or plan. The Zarok took that same biological model and gave it intelligence and mobility." "Can we use that against them?" Jake asked. Lisa smiled in a way that made several people uncomfortable. "Oh yes. You see, Earth has something the rest of the galaxy does not. We have experience with biological warfare." The room went quiet. Everyone there knew that biological weapons were banned by the Galactic Council. Most species considered them too horrible to even discuss. But Earth had developed such weapons centuries ago during their darkest wars. Diseases designed to kill, viruses that targeted specific genetic markers, bacteria that ate through protective gear. The Council banned bioweapons 3,000 years ago, Ryan said carefully. They consider it the worst form of warfare. The Council has never faced extinction, Lisa countered. They developed their rules during times of peace, when they had the luxury of being moral. The Cathari do not have that luxury anymore. Neither do we if we want to stop the Zarok permanently. Kyle stood and walked to the display. His large hands manipulated the holograms, zooming in on different Zarok ship types. "Let me get this straight. We can hurt them with kinetic weapons, energy weapons, biological agents, chemical attacks, temperature extremes, and probably a dozen other things I have not thought of yet. And as long as we keep switching between different attack types, they cannot adapt fast enough to stop us." "Correct," Ryan confirmed. "Then we hit them with everything," Kyle said simply. "We do not give them time to breathe or adapt. We throw so many different threats at them that their biology breaks trying to keep up." Emma pulled up tactical charts. "The Cathari have a colony world called Velkan Prime. Intelligence reports show a Zarok swarm heading there now, over 300 bioships. They will arrive in about 5 days. "Perfect," Jake said. "That gives us time to prepare. Ryan, I want you to design an attack pattern that uses maximum variety. Every weapon system we have, cycle through them constantly. Kyle, your Marines need to be ready for boarding actions. If we can get inside their ships, I want you tearing them apart from within." "What about support from the Council fleet?" someone asked. Jake shook his head. "This will be a human-only operation. The Council does not understand how we fight. They would just get in the way. Besides, if we are going to do this, we need to do it our way. No restrictions, no rules of engagement, no apologies." Lisa raised her hand. "I will need to synthesize some biological agents. Nothing I am planning exists in nature. These will be designer pathogens built specifically to attack Zarok's cellular structures." "Do it," Jake approved. You have full access to any resources you need. This station has level 5 biolabs that have been locked since we built the place. Time to open them up. Over the next 72 hours, the Earth Defense Station became a hive of activity. Weapons were loaded and tested. Scientists worked around the clock, creating new compounds. Marines trained in mock-ups of Zarok bioships based on Cathari intelligence data. Ryan created a battle plan that was intentionally chaotic. Instead of organized attack waves, the human fleet would strike in random patterns. Kinetic rounds, followed by missiles, followed by lasers, followed by plasma bolts, freezing chemicals, followed by burning acids, followed by electrical attacks. No pattern. No predictability. Just constant, overwhelming violence. Jake stood on the observation deck and watched Earth below. He thought about what they were planning to do. The Galactic Council would be horrified. They would call it barbaric and excessive. They would say humans were too violent for civilized space. But Jake had grown up on Earth. He remembered learning in school about extinction events that had wiped out most life on the planet multiple times. He remembered studying how humans had survived ice ages and supervolcanoes and plagues. Earth had tried to kill humanity for hundreds of thousands of years, and humanity had not just survived. They had thrived. That was the difference between Deathworlders and everyone else. Other species learned to build civilizations to escape nature. Humans learned to build civilizations to conquer nature. They learned that when something threatened you, you did not negotiate or compromise. You destroyed it completely before it could destroy you. The Zarok were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Emma found him there an hour before the fleet was scheduled to depart. "All ships report ready," she said. 37 vessels, 15,000 crew members, enough firepower to crack a planet. "Is it enough?" Jake asked. "Against 300 Zarok bioships?" Emma considered the question. "If we were fighting by Council rules, no. But we are not playing by their rules. We are playing by Earth rules. And on Earth, humans have driven countless species to extinction. We are very good at it." Jake turned to face her. "After this is over, the galaxy will look at us differently. They will fear us." "They already fear us," Emma replied. "They just hide it behind politeness. This will just make it obvious." The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Vulcan Prime, like a hammer falling from the sky. 37 ships arranged themselves in a loose formation that made no sense to traditional military tactics. There was no clear command structure visible from the outside, no organized battle line, no defensive perimeter. On the surface of Vulcan Prime, Ambassador Velen watched from the orbital defense station. His antennae twitched nervously as he studied the human vessels. They looked wrong compared to the elegant ships of the Galactic Council. Where Council ships were smooth and curved, human ships were blocky and covered in weapons. The flagship, called the Retribution, looked more like a flying fortress than a spacecraft. "I count only 37 vessels," Velen said to his aide. "The Zarok swarm has over 300 bioships. How can they hope to win?" Before anyone could answer, Commander Morrison's face appeared on the main view screen. He looked calm, almost relaxed. "Ambassador Velen, good to see you again. We are here as requested. I recommend you keep your civilian ships well back from the combat zone. Things are going to get messy. Commander, I appreciate your arrival, but the numbers are against you. Perhaps we should wait for Council reinforcements." Jake smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "Ambassador, on Earth we have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, it is the size of the fight in the dog. Numbers matter less than people think. Besides, humans have experience dealing with swarms. We have been fighting insects for our entire history." The Zarok swarm entered the system before Velen could respond. They came in a massive cluster, hundreds of organic ships pulsing with bioluminescent light. Each bioship was different from the others. Some were long and thin like eels. Others were round and bloated. A few had tentacles that reached out 50 meters in every direction. They moved together like a school of fish, turning and flowing as one organism. "Here they come," Emma announced from her station on the Retribution. 327 contacts. They are moving into attack formation. Jake studied the tactical display. The Xerok were arranging themselves in a pattern they had probably used successfully dozens of times before. The smaller ships would rush forward to absorb the first attack, while the larger vessels moved into position to strike. It was an effective strategy against enemies who used one or two weapon types. It was not going to work against humans. "All ships, weapons free," Jake ordered. "Execute attack pattern Alpha 7. Make it hurt." The human fleet opened fire, and the Xerok swarm learned their first lesson about Deathworlders. Humans did not fight with elegant energy beams or precision missiles. They fought with everything. The first wave was simple kinetic rounds. Massive chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. The Xerok bioships, designed to absorb and dissipate energy weapons, had no defense against solid matter moving at a fraction of light speed. The rounds punched through organic hulls like bullets through paper. Green blood and biological matter sprayed into space. Dozens of Xerok ships ruptured. Some exploded completely. Others simply came apart, their internal structures unable to handle the massive trauma. But the Xerok were already adapting. The surviving ships began hardening their outer shells, growing thicker armor plating that could potentially stop kinetic rounds. That was when the second wave hit. Missiles by the thousands launched from the human fleet. But these were not normal missiles. Each one carried a different payload. Some were nuclear, some were antimatter, some were biological agents, some were chemical compounds that had been banned on Earth for 300 years, and some were nothing but frozen water, supercooled to near absolute zero. The Xerok swarm tried to adapt, but they could not keep up. Every time their biology changed to counter one threat, 3 more different threats hit them. Ships that had grown heat-resistant shells to counter the nuclear blasts suddenly froze solid when ice missiles exploded against them. Ships that had adapted to biological agents were torn apart by antimatter. Ships that had prepared for chemical attacks were cooked by plasma bolts. "They are trying to adapt," Ryan reported from his analysis station. "But we are cycling through weapon types too fast. Their mutation rate cannot keep up with our attack variety." Jake watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. It was chaos. There was no elegant pattern, no beautiful formations. It was just raw, overwhelming violence, and it was working. "Launch the boarding parties," he ordered. Kyle stood in the cargo bay of a modified assault ship with his Marines. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that made them look like soldiers from a nightmare. Flamethrowers, chainsaws, explosive charges, even simple combat knives that were each over a foot long. "Remember your training," Kyle called out to his team. "These bioships are living creatures. That means they have organs, blood vessels, and weak points. We are going in through the damaged sections, and we are going to tear them apart from the inside." The assault ship launched from the Retribution and flew straight toward a wounded Xerok vessel. The bioship tried to defend itself with organic weapons, but the assault ship's armor was too thick. They crashed into the Xerok hull at full speed, and the impact drove them deep into the living ship's interior. Kyle kicked open the hatch. Inside the Xerok bioship was like being inside a body. The walls were made of flesh that pulsed with life. Veins ran along the ceiling carrying fluids. The air smelled like copper and rot. "Move," Kyle ordered. The Marines spread out through the interior of the bioship. They encountered Xerok drones, small creatures that served as the ship's immune system. The drones were fast and had sharp claws, but they were not prepared for heavily armed humans. Flamethrowers turned corridors into infernos. Chainsaws cut through living walls. Explosive charges were placed on what looked like major organs. Kyle himself used a shotgun loaded with explosive rounds, firing into anything that moved. "This is nothing like Council warfare," one Marine said over the comm. "That is the point," Kyle replied, reloading his weapon. "Council species fight clean. We fight to win. Now plant those charges and let us move to the next target." Outside, the space battle continued. The human fleet was taking damage. Several ships had been hit by Xarok organic weapons, acid that ate through metal and living projectiles that burrowed into hulls. But for every human ship damaged, 20 Xarok bioships were destroyed. Emma coordinated the attack from her station. She watched the patterns, saw when the Xarok were starting to adapt to one weapon type, and immediately ordered a switch to something completely different. It was like conducting an orchestra of destruction. "They are trying to retreat," she reported. "Approximately 60 bioships are breaking formation and heading for the system edge." "Let them go?" asked one of the tactical officers. Jake shook his head. "Negative. If even one ship escapes, it will carry information about our tactics back to the main hive. The Xarok will adapt their entire swarm. We cannot allow that. All ships, pursue and destroy. No survivors." It was a cold order, but Jake meant every word. On Earth, when humans fought invasive species, they did not wound them and hope they went away. They eradicated them completely. That was the only way to be sure. The human fleet broke formation and chased down the fleeing Xarok vessels. It was not a battle anymore. It was an extermination. Inside the bioship, Kyle and his Marines had placed charges on what their scanners identified as major organs. The structure around them was dying, the walls no longer pulsing with life. "All charges set," Kyle reported. "Team, we are leaving. Move!" They ran back to the assault ship and launched just as the charges detonated. Behind them, the Xarok bioship exploded from the inside, spilling its contents into space. Fire bloomed in the vacuum as the oxygen inside the organic vessel ignited. "That is 6 ships our boarding parties have destroyed," Emma said with satisfaction. "The Xarok are learning that humans do not just fight from a distance. We get up close and personal." Velen watched the battle from the safety of the defense station. His entire body trembled. He had seen council battles before. They were organized affairs with clear rules and objectives. Combatants tried to disable enemy ships, not destroy them completely. There was always room for retreat and negotiation. This was nothing like that. The humans were not trying to win a battle. They were trying to kill every single Xarok in the system. There was no mercy, no hesitation, no moment where they offered terms of surrender. "What are they?" whispered Velen's aide. "They are Deathworlders," Velen replied quietly. "This is what we asked for. This is what a species looks like when their world teaches them that survival means being more violent than everything trying to kill them." The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, the Xarok swarm was completely destroyed. Not defeated, not routed, but annihilated. Every single bioship was either a drifting corpse or a cloud of debris. The human fleet had pursued even the fastest fleeing vessels to the edge of the system and destroyed them. Jake stood on the bridge of the Retribution and looked at the tactical display. Where there had once been over 300 enemy contacts, there was now nothing but wreckage and silence. The meeting took place on the Retribution 2 hours after the battle ended. Ambassador Velen arrived with a small delegation of Cathari officials. They walked through the corridors of the human ship and saw things that disturbed them. Crew members cleaning weapons that still had organic matter stuck to them. Medical teams treating wounded soldiers with injuries that showed they had been in close combat. Walls marked with battle damage. Jake met them in the conference room. Emma was there, along with Ryan and Kyle. The Marines still wore their armor, though they had removed their helmets. There was a smell of smoke and chemicals in the air. "Ambassador," Jake greeted him. "Thank you for coming." Velen's antennae moved in a pattern that showed respect but also fear. "Commander, we are grateful beyond words. You saved our colony. You destroyed the Zarok swarm completely. But I must ask, was such violence necessary? Could you not have simply driven them away? Jake looked at the alien for a long moment. Ambassador, I need you to understand something about how humans think. Where I come from, there is a plant called kudzu. It was brought to Earth from another continent. It grew fast and covered everything. Trees, buildings, entire forests. People tried to cut it back, but it always returned. Do you know what finally worked? Velen shook his head. Complete eradication. We had to kill it down to the roots and poison the soil to make sure it never came back. That is how you deal with invasive species. You do not trim them. You do not relocate them. You destroy them totally. The Zarok are not plants, Velen protested weakly. No, they are worse. They are intelligent, invasive species, and we need to talk about what comes next. Jake activated the holographic display. It showed star charts of Zarok space. The swarm we just destroyed was a scouting force. The main Zarok hive has hundreds of thousands of bioships. They will learn about what happened here. They will adapt. They will return stronger. Then we fortify our borders. We prepare better defenses. Emma leaned forward. That will not work. The Zarok will study what we did here and develop countermeasures. They will grow thicker armor against kinetic rounds. They will develop resistance to our biological agents. They will adapt to every tactic we used. When they come back, they will be prepared for us. So what do you suggest? Asked one of the Cathari officials. Kyle spoke up, his voice rough from breathing smoke during the boarding action. We go to their home world and we burn them out completely. We do not wait for them to come back. We strike first. The Cathari delegation recoiled. Velen made a sound like wind through broken pipes. That is genocide. The Galactic Council has laws against such actions. We are a civilized society. We do not exterminate entire species. Even species that are trying to exterminate you? Jake asked quietly. Ambassador, I understand this is hard to hear, but humans learned a long time ago that some threats cannot be negotiated with. Some enemies will never stop coming. The only way to be truly safe is to eliminate the threat completely. I cannot approve this. I will not be responsible for the death of billions of creatures. Jake stood and walked to the window. Outside, debris from the destroyed Zarok ships drifted past. Then you are responsible for the billions of your own people who will die when the Zarok return. Make your choice, Ambassador, but make it fast, because whether you approve or not, we are going to finish this. 3 hours later, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the council chamber, a massive structure that orbited a neutral star. They watched the footage from the Battle of Velkin Prime with expressions ranging from shock to horror to approval. The debate lasted for hours. Some species called for humanity to be expelled from the council. Others argued that humans had saved Cathari lives and should be praised. A few quietly began making notes about upgrading their own military doctrines. Finally, it came to a vote. The question was simple. Should humanity be allowed to strike at the Zarok homeworld with the intent of complete species eradication? The vote was deadlocked. Half the council voted yes, half voted no. As the tie-breaking vote, it fell to the Cathari delegation. Velen stood before the entire council. His antennae drooped with the weight of the decision. 3 months ago, the Zarok came to our space and began killing my people. We begged for help. We followed every proper channel. We submitted every formal request, and the council sent sympathy. He paused and looked around the chamber. Then we went to the humans. We knew they were different. We knew they came from a harsh world that made them hard. We asked for their help, and they gave it without hesitation. They fought in ways that horrify us. They used weapons we consider barbaric. They showed no mercy to an enemy that showed no mercy to us. Velen's voice grew stronger. I have watched the footage of the battle 20 times. I have seen the violence, the destruction, the complete annihilation of the Zarok force. And I have also seen this. Not one Cathari died while humans were protecting us. The humans took casualties to save our people. They did what none of you would do. He looked directly at the human delegation. Commander Morrison sat there, calm and unmoved by the debates swirling around him. I vote yes, Velen declared. Let the humans finish what the Zarok started. Let them show the galaxy what happens when a Deathworld species decides something is a threat, and let us all remember that we asked for this. The chamber erupted in arguments, but the vote was final. Humanity had permission to strike the Zarok homeworld. Jake stood on the bridge of the Retribution 1 week later. Around him floated the largest human fleet ever assembled. 60 warships, each loaded with enough weapons to sterilize a planet. They hung in space at the edge of Zarok territory, preparing for the final jump. All ships report ready, Emma said. She looked tired. They all did. The past week had been spent in constant preparation. Ryan pulled up the final attack plan. The Zarok homeworld is called Zarath. It has a population we estimate at 12 billion. The entire planet is covered in their organic structures. There are no civilians. Every Zarok is part of the hive mind. Everyone is a soldier. Do you have any doubts? Jake asked quietly. Ryan shook his head. I studied Earth history. I read about the wars we fought against each other before we reached the stars. Humans did terrible things to other humans. But we learned from it. We learned that some wars have to be fought completely, or not at all. If we leave the Zarok crippled but alive, they will recover and come back. This is a war of extinction. Either they die, or eventually, someone else will. Jake activated the ship-wide communication channel. His voice went out to 60 warships and 30,000 crew members. This is Commander Morrison. In a few minutes, we will jump to the Zarok homeworld. What we are about to do will be remembered for 1,000 years. Some will call us saviors. Others will call us monsters. Both will be right. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I want you all to understand what we are doing and why. The Zarok are not evil. They are just following their nature. They consume and expand because that is what their biology drives them to do. But their nature threatens every other species in this galaxy. So we are going to do what humans have always done when faced with an existential threat. We are going to eliminate it. The Galactic Council asked us for help because they knew we were different. They knew we came from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Earth taught us to be survivors. It taught us to be fighters. It taught us that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it. After today, the galaxy will fear us. They will look at humans and see something dangerous. But they will also see something reliable. When the Council faces a threat they cannot handle, they will know who to call. And we will answer, because that is what Deathworlders do. Jake took a breath. All ships, prepare to jump. Target is the Zarok homeworld. Rules of engagement, total destruction. Use every weapon we have. Leave nothing alive. This is not about honor or glory. This is about survival. Let us show the galaxy what that really means. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the empty space. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zarath system. Before them hung the Zarok homeworld, a planet covered entirely in organic structures that pulsed with bioluminescent light. From orbit, it looked beautiful in a disturbing way, like a living work of art. Jake stood on the bridge and stared at the world they were about to destroy. He felt no joy in what was coming, but he felt no hesitation either. This was necessary. This was survival. Scan shows over 50,000 bioships in orbit, Emma reported, and the planet itself is covered in defensive structures. They knew we were coming. Of course they did, Ryan said. They are a hive mind. The moment we destroyed their swarm at Velkan Prime, the entire species learned about us. They have spent the last week preparing. Kyle checked his weapons one more time. Does it matter? We came here to finish this. Launch the first wave, Jake ordered. What followed was not a battle. It was systematic extermination. The human fleet did not try to fight honorably or minimize damage. They unleashed everything they had brought. Nuclear weapons fell like rain, each one powerful enough to flatten a city. The Zarok bioships tried to intercept them, but there were too many coming from too many directions. Mushroom clouds bloomed across the planet's surface, turning organic structures into ash and vapor. Antimatter bombs followed, creating explosions that erased everything in their blast radius. Where the nuclear weapons left ruins, the antimatter left nothing but empty craters. Then came the biological agents. Dr. Lisa Grant had spent the week creating designer diseases specifically built to attack Zarok's cellular structures. Missiles carrying these pathogens spread across the planet, releasing clouds of microscopic death. The Zarok tried to adapt, but the diseases mutated faster than they could respond. Planet-wide casualties estimated at 70%, Ryan reported, his voice flat and emotionless. The bioweapons are spreading through their organic structures. Their entire infrastructure is dying. Continue bombardment, Jake ordered. For 3 days, the human fleet rained destruction on Zarath. They used weapons that had been banned, forgotten, or locked away for centuries. They burned the atmosphere. They boiled the oceans. They cracked the crust in places, exposing the planet's molten core. The Zarok fought back desperately. Their bioships managed to destroy 2 human vessels and damage a dozen more. But it was not enough. For every human ship destroyed, the Zarok lost 1,000. Their homeworld was dying, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. On the 3rd day, the bombardment stopped. Jake ordered the fleet to hold position while scanners swept the planet below. What they found was a dead world. The organic structures were gone, burned to ash or melted to slag. The oceans were empty. The atmosphere was toxic. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. Scan complete, Emma said quietly. No life signs detected anywhere on the planet. The Zarok are extinct. The bridge was silent for a long moment. 30,000 humans on 60 ships had just wiped out an entire species. Some crew members looked relieved, others looked sick, a few looked proud. Jake felt only tired. Take us home, he said. The journey back to Cathari space took 2 days. When the human fleet arrived, they found a very different greeting than when they had left. No celebration, no cheering crowds, just quiet ships maintaining a respectful distance. Ambassador Velen's face appeared on the view screen. His antennae were perfectly still, showing no emotion at all. Commander Morrison, the Galactic Council has received your report. The Zarok homeworld is confirmed sterile. You have completed your mission. You do not sound happy about it, Jake observed. I am not unhappy. I am simply understanding for the first time what we asked you to do. Velen paused. My people are safe. The Zarok threat is ended. But the cost was an entire species erased from the galaxy. I must live with the knowledge that I voted for genocide. You voted for survival, Jake corrected. The Zarok gave you no choice. It was them or you. Perhaps. But I will never know for certain, and neither will history. The transmission ended. Jake looked at Emma. The Council is going to make us the villains of this story. Some of them will, Emma agreed. Others will remember that we saved the Cathari and ended a threat that was spreading across the galaxy. History will decide what we were, monsters or heroes. Or both, Jake said. Over the following months, the galaxy struggled to process what had happened. The Council held debates that lasted weeks. Some species called for humanity to be expelled and their weapons technology banned. Others quietly began approaching Earth with requests for defensive pacts and technology sharing. Public opinion across the galaxy was divided. On some worlds, humans were seen as saviors who had done what was necessary. On others, They were seen as dangerous barbarians who solved problems with excessive violence, and on a few worlds, they were seen as both. Commander Jake Morrison retired 6 months after the Zarok campaign. He returned to Earth and bought a small cabin in the mountains of Colorado. He spent his days hiking, reading, and trying not to think about the 12 billion lives he had ended. But reporters found him eventually. They always did. "Commander Morrison, do you regret your actions during the Zarok campaign?" a reporter asked during one interview. Jake thought about the question carefully. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the galaxy had let the threat grow until extreme measures were required. I regret that the Cathari had to watch their saviors become mass murderers. But do I regret the decision itself? No. The Zarok were an existential threat. We did what had to be done. But you killed an entire species. Yes, and if faced with the same choice again, I would make the same decision. That is what it means to be from a death world. We understand that survival sometimes requires terrible choices. We understand that protecting what you love sometimes means destroying what threatens it. The galaxy may not like that truth, but it is still truth. Emma stayed in the military and eventually became commander of the Earth Defense Station. She implemented new training programs based on lessons learned from the Zarok campaign. Human military doctrine became the most studied and most feared in the galaxy. Kyle continued leading Marine boarding actions. His reputation grew until his name alone was enough to make enemy ships surrender. He published a manual on close-quarters combat that was secretly studied by dozens of alien military forces, despite official condemnations. Ryan became an advisor to the Galactic Council on Threat Assessment. He taught them how to identify existential threats before they required extreme responses. Some council members resented his presence. Others were grateful for his insights. Dr. Lisa Grant returned to civilian research, but her work on the Zarok biological agents had made her both famous and infamous. Some called her a genius, others called her a war criminal. She ignored both labels and continued her studies. 5 years after the Zarok campaign, Ambassador Velen visited Earth. He traveled to Jake's cabin in Colorado and found the retired commander chopping wood outside. "Ambassador," Jake greeted him, setting down his axe. "This is unexpected." Velen's antennae moved in a pattern of respect. "I wanted to see your world, the death world that created a species capable of such destruction." Jake gestured around them. Mountains rose in the distance, covered in green forests. A stream ran nearby, clear and cold. Birds sang in the trees. "Does it look like a nightmare planet?" "No," Velen admitted. "It looks beautiful." "It is. It is also deadly. Those mountains have avalanches that can bury entire towns. The forests have bears that can kill a human with one swipe. The stream looks peaceful, but flash floods can turn it into a raging river in minutes. This planet has been trying to kill humans for hundreds of thousands of years. And yet you love it. Of course, it made us what we are, strong enough to survive, smart enough to thrive, ruthless enough to eliminate threats." Jake picked up his axe again. "The galaxy sees us as monsters because we destroyed the Zarok. But Earth has taught us that sometimes you have to be a monster to protect what matters." "Do you think other species will ever understand that?" Jake shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not. But they will remember it. The next time the galaxy faces an existential threat, they will know who to call, and we will answer, because that is what Deathworlders do." Velen watched as Jake went back to chopping wood. The human moved with practiced efficiency, each swing of the axe perfectly controlled. It was the same efficiency he had shown during the Zarok campaign, the same focus, the same understanding that some tasks required force and precision. "I came here to thank you," Velen said finally. "My people are alive because of what you did. I wanted you to know that we remember, and we are grateful, even if it is complicated." Jake stopped and looked at the alien. Complicated is good. It means you are thinking about it. The day we stop thinking about the cost of our actions is the day we become the monsters everyone fears. Velen returned to his ship and left Earth behind. As his vessel climbed toward space, he looked back at the blue and white planet below. It looked so peaceful from orbit. But now he understood the truth. Earth was not peaceful. It was a crucible that forged survivors. It was a death world that created a species capable of both terrible destruction and surprising compassion. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. They had seen what Deathworlders could do when pushed. They had witnessed total destruction delivered with cold efficiency, and they had learned a lesson that would echo through history. Some problems require diplomacy, some require negotiation. Some require patience and understanding, but some problems require Deathworlders, and when those problems arise, humanity would be there, ready, willing, capable. The Zarok were gone, erased from the galaxy completely. Their homeworld was a sterile rock orbiting a distant star. Future generations would study what happened and debate whether it was necessary. They would argue about morality and proportional response and the cost of survival. But one fact would remain undisputed. The Cathari had begged for help, and Deathworlders had answered with total destruction. It was brutal. It was effective. It was exactly what Earth had taught humanity to be. And the galaxy would never forget, filled with the energy discharge of 60 warships vanishing in an instant. On Earth, billions of people went about their normal lives. They did not know that above them, in the depths of space, their species was about to do something that would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. They did not know that Commander Jake Morrison and 30,000 humans were about to burn an entire world to ash. They did not know that the peaceful species of the Galactic Council were about to learn what it truly meant to ask Deathworlders for help. And they did not know that in 3 days, the word human would become synonymous with a simple truth that every species in the galaxy would remember. Some problems require gentle solutions, and some require absolute destruction. Humans were very good at providing both. The question was never whether humans could destroy the Zarok. The question was whether the galaxy could accept what it meant to have Deathworlders as allies. "Casualty report," he said quietly. 2 ships heavily damaged, 4 ships with moderate damage, and 173 crew casualties. 62 dead, 111 wounded, Emma reported. "We lost people, but we won." Jake nodded slowly. Every death weighed on him, but he knew the alternative was worse. If they had fought conservatively, if they had held back, more humans would have died. The Zarok would have adapted. The battle would have been longer and bloodier. "Send a message to Ambassador Velen," Jake said. "Tell him the immediate threat is eliminated. And then tell him we need to talk." "Are you okay with that?" Emma looked out at Earth. Somewhere down there was the small town where she had grown up. She remembered learning to hunt with her father, tracking deer through the forest. She remembered him teaching her that nature was not cruel or kind. It just was. And to survive in nature, you had to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless than everything trying to kill you. "The Cathari came to us because they knew we were different," she said finally. "They knew we came from a world that made us hard. They asked for our help. We are going to give it to them. If the galaxy does not like our methods, they should not have asked Deathworlders to solve their problems." Jake nodded. He pressed his comm badge. "All ships, this is Commander Morrison. Prepare for departure. We jump to Cathari space in 1 hour. When we get there, we are going to show the Zarok what happens when you threaten a species under human protection. No mercy, no restraint. Total destruction. That is the Deathworlder way. Across the fleet, crews prepared for battle. They loaded weapons that the Council had never imagined using. They checked biological containment suits and sharpened combat knives. They were about to fight a war the way Earth had taught them to fight. With everything they had and no apologies for the results. Earth did not produce the strongest species, or the smartest species, or the fastest species. Earth produced survivors. It produced a species that learned to use fire, tools, weapons, and tactics because anything less meant death. It produced a species that looked at the deadliest predator in the jungle and thought about how it would taste cooked over a fire. The Galactic Council was about to learn what that really meant. They were about to see what happened when you asked Deathworlders for help, and Jake knew that once they saw it, they would never look at humanity the same way again. The question was not whether humans could defeat the Zarok. The question was whether the galaxy was ready to see how humans fought when they decided something needed to die.